All right.
All right, folks. I want to welcome all of you to our session today. Uh, Once again, we are doing an interview with the lead vocalist from the band Angel. That's Frank DiMino, of course. And we're going to talk about a lot of things with Frank today. Now, we did a previous interview with Frank, and that focused on his solo work. So we'll bypass that today, but you can catch that on our last interview that we did with him. But to set things up, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the band and their catalog. So this
Yeah.
was a group that hit our ears in 1975 with their debut album Angel, and a
Right.
song that led it off by the name of Tower, which has been a staple in their live shows. Just a great album. The future looked fantastic for them at that time. They were signed to Casablanca Records along with Kiss, and the sky was the limit. And
Yeah.
they ended up putting out 5 albums in 5 years. They were doing one album a year, and they followed that with Hell of a Band in 1976, and then 77 with On Earth as It Is in Heaven. In 78, there was White Hot. And then in 79, they did their final album. Maybe they didn't know it at the time, but that one was called Sinful. And then, so a lot of time went by.
Right.
I haven't counted up the years, but suddenly in 2019, Angel was resurrected, and we had an album called Risen that they put out. And if you had somebody that didn't know the band and you had them listen to that album and their older stuff, they really probably wouldn't be able to say, okay, they're older now, they're 40, 50 years older. You wouldn't be able to hear that. They continued to put out the same type of sound, which is great for their fans. And I actually think Risen is one of their best albums. And then 4 years later, just a couple of years ago, they did Once Upon a Time. Excuse me. And that's another solid album. So all in total, they ended up doing 7 albums, and we'll get into all of that. But first of all, so they are out on tour right now, and they just finished up the start of a tour and a weekend with 3 shows. So I'd like to ask Frank, how did the shows go? How did your voice hold up? What crazy things happened, and how were the crowds?
Okay. Number one, the crowds were great. All 3 shows, they were really having a great time and joined in the festivities with us. And the crazy thing is I was talking about earlier was the last show, which was the third show in a row. My in-ears went out, and of course I have no the monitors. The monitors in front are basically for the guys, for Punky, Tommy, and Danny. So there's not a whole lot of stuff there for me. There are some vocals coming out of there, but none for me because I'm using my in-ears. And for some reason, everything was fine during the sound check, but for some reason something happened, and I had no in-ears, so I could not hear anything I was doing. And I'm struggling to hear what I was doing as I'm listening to the band and trying to keep the crowd involved and stuff. And finally, it did come through about halfway through the set. We were back on track. So yeah, there was a little bit of a yelling and screaming and trying to figure out what was going on and trying to hear what I was doing. But I don't think it affected the show much, other than I couldn't hear myself. So I
Now,
don't know what that was like.
question on, so
Hey,
talking about in-ears,
yeah,
we're roughly the same age. We came from the era of monitors. There was no in-ears back in the day. And, I'm a singer myself, and my band uses in-ears now. I'm just managing the group. But whenever I get up on stage to do a cameo appearance, I don't use the in-ears, so I've got to use the side fills or whatever they've got. Sometimes it's okay, and sometimes it's not. That's when it's not is when you hope it's not being recorded. And
yeah.
so, how did you transition to the in-ears, and when did you go about the transition for that?
Very difficult because, like you, I mean, I grew up using the front monitors or the side fills and stuff. In Angel, as we progressed, I mostly just used side fills. because front monitors used to bark at me so much, and after a while your ears are just overly taxed and you can't hear anything. So I use mostly side fills, and I say as we progress because we had a bigger stage. It wasn't like in smaller venues and stuff, so it was a little bit easier for us to manage. Um, um, as the years go by, I mean, I still was one of the last ones to go to in-ears because I was so used to not using them. But now I kick myself in the ass wishing I did use them because, I had a lot of ear damage because of that. And my in-ears now save me from that stuff. So using in-ears now filters out all the noise, filters out everything, and I can add little by little whatever I want. If I need a little bit more guitar, a little bit more keyboards, I can do that. Like if I want a little bit more me, which I never could do before, I can do that. So it has saved me and has saved my ears. And I implore anyone that's out doing what I'm doing right now to, if they haven't gone to any ears, to adjust what they're doing now and use them because the ear damage is quite a game changer because it gets really brutal out there after a while, and your ears get overly taxed, and you can't hear anything at all after a while. They just shut down.
Do you have one ear that's got better hearing than the other currently?
Yeah, I believe my left ear is better than my right.
That's the opposite for me. I've got a lot of damage in the left ear. I just when I have tried them, that I felt lost a little bit, and I felt like I lost connection with the audience. But I think that's something you probably get over. But you're still not
Yeah,
going to quite hear the audience the same way you used to, right?
right. Yeah, and sometimes I like when in between songs, sometimes I may pull it out if I feel that. But yes, that's one of the adjustments that you have to come to terms with. But like I said, it is a little bit of an adjustment, but it's an adjustment that you need to make if you plan on doing what I'm doing, because
That's good advice
you just
for the musicians that would be listening in, and I have people telling me this all the time. So probably you might be the one that pushes me over into it because I've been resisting it the whole time. But so, do you want to talk just a
I,
little
I
bit about?
see I see a lot of the young bands all using in-ears. They seem to be gravitating towards that. I actually rarely see them not using in-ears.
Right.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think you're right because they now that they're out, I think people get used to things when they've been out for a
well,
while.
exactly. Yeah, it's that's the platform for them.
Yeah,
They in a way they don't even know any better. It's like, yeah, it's
you're,
in-ears.
you're
Like back in
absolutely
the
right.
day when you guys were starting out, it was all, front monitors and side fills. You know,
Yeah,
so
exactly. Well, well, yeah. Oh, I
And I
thought you
should
had
I
a
should
question.
mention, Frank, because I totally was remiss. So this is Robert Olshever, who was had the nickname of Baba Louie when we did the magazine back in the day. And he was at a meeting the other day when we did the first interview with you. So he's here with us today, and he's a very big Angel fan. I think back in the day at the time, between the two of us, we were both big fans, but Robert was really the driving force to try to get the interview with you through Casablanca, and just a big, big fan. And Robert, do you have a couple of recollections of seeing Angel live? I know we've talked.
yeah, yeah. Well, a couple of things. Seeing them live. The first time I saw you guys live, I think you opened up for Aerosmith at the Forum or Blue Oyster Cult at the Forum.
Oh, at the
Which
forum, yes. It's probably Blue Oyster Cult. Yeah,
it was Blue Oyster Cult. I think it was Blue Oyster Cult, Angel, and Bebop Deluxe or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
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 yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
so that was my first brush with you guys live. Obviously, I have the records. I still have the first Angel T-shirt. We'll send you a picture of us wearing it. Yeah,
Hey
so
man, you
so
gotta wear that thing too.
I know I couldn't find it, but anyways, obviously, I heard you before I saw you. So when I saw
Yeah,
you live, that totally blew me away. It's like, holy shit, these guys are, kissing white. That's what I thought, you know. And so for us, as you know, the trajectory of our magazine was we were always trying, you know, we at some point we wanted to interview any band that we can get in front of, and then and we were doing that, and we had this we had this goal that we wanted to get to Kiss. You know, we wanted to get to Kiss, and we kept coincidentally interviewing bands that had connections to Kiss. And it started out, I want to say, like with Quiet Riot. I think you guys were all managed by, you were managed by Warren Entner, right?
Well, Warren was part of the management partnership that David had. We were managed by David Joseph, who ran Toby, and Warren was part of that.
Right.
Brought in Quiet Riot, yes.
Right, and they brought in Legs Diamond. I think Legs Diamond was part of that, and I think a band out of Canada, Moxie, was part of that. So we were interviewing all those bands to get to Angel, knowing that if we got to Angel, there's a good chance we're getting to Kiss. But no disrespect to Angel. It's like, holy shit! Imagine if we got an interview with Angel, and lo and behold, we get this interview with Angel. And so what was happening was we were interviewing all these bands that were not playing the Forum. You know, they're playing the Whiskey, they're playing the Starwood, but they weren't playing the Forum. They weren't playing the Long Beach Arena. They weren't doing the Santa Monica, none of that shit.
Right.
But it was like, you know, when we got the chance to interview Angel, that was like a big game changer for us. Number one, just from a fan standpoint, but number two, it's like, holy shit, if we got to Angel, you know, the sky's the limit on where we can go with this. And, you know, history proved that. Yeah. So we interviewed you guys. I think you were rehearsing in like SIR Studios or something like that. And I remember walking in there, and there's the band. There's you guys. And I'm like, holy fuck, that's Angel. But on top of that, it's like all this equipment you guys had. I'm like, wow, we clearly hit the big time right now. We just saw them at the Forum probably a couple of months ago. I think we're going to go see them. I think you're playing like the Long Beach Arena or something like that. And I'm like, holy fuck, man, we hit it. We hit it. And I'm like, and I just remember like, holy shit, look at all the equipment, and that's the band, you know, and yeah. So the point is, you helped us set it off. You clearly helped us set it off. And, you know, and, you know, coming from being a fan of the band was even that much more important, because we weren't approaching it as like we were journalists. We weren't journalists. We were fans that were writing about what we enjoyed musically, you know, and we were creating it. We were learning it as we were going along, because there was nothing to compare it to in front of us. It was like, you know, we got this magazine, it's given us some access to talk to bands. And if we talk to Quiet Riot, then we could talk to Legs Diamond. If we talk to Legs Diamond, we could talk to Moxie. We talk to Moxie, we could talk to Angel. And then all of a sudden it's like, shit, now we're talking, you know, and meanwhile we're like, well, let's not talk to Van Halen because they're still stuck at the Whiskey, you know, but we did, you know, as a favor to the manager of the Whiskey, you know, so, you know, it was all there for a reason.
And we eventually, you know, we eventually did interview Kiss, of course, and we put them on the cover of the magazine.
I think you're muted.
Am I? Can you guys hear me or no?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Intermittently.
So we eventually did interview Kiss, and put them on the cover of the last issue that we produced. But yeah, those were great times. I wanted to ask you about, so you've got how many days off now before your next show?
Next show is Wednesday.
Wednesday, and where is that?
That's in Sellersville.
Okay, great.
And Frank, who's in the band now?
Oh, in the band we have Charlie Calvers on keyboards, and he's been with the band now for a while. I was just saying the other day, it seems like this band has been together maybe it may be just as long, if not longer, than the original band now. And I keep thinking that it's, it's a newer band, but it really isn't. I mean, we've been together now for a while. I mean, except for Tommy, who just came aboard, the bass player, Tommy T-Bone. But the band has been together for a while now, and musically, the band's very tight. I mean, even when we throw in new songs, take out old songs, put in new ones and stuff, even though we're not able to rehearse like we used to back in the day, everyone does their homework. And when we get together for rehearsal, we come together before every tour to do, a few like a week or two of rehearsal or a few days of rehearsal. The band is very tight musically. So, it's Charlie Calv is on keyboards and Billy Orico is on drums. And Billy was an Angel fan and a big Barry Brandt fan. And although Barry doesn't play exactly like Barry, he has Barry's essence in him. I mean, he drives the band, which is really important for me. I mean, as far as drummers, live, the drummer has to be the motor behind the band, and Billy really drives the band. He's a great drummer. And of course, Tommy just joined us, Tommy T-Bone Caradona. He was with Alice Cooper and Lita Ford for a while, played with those guys, and came very highly recommended, and he's fit in seamlessly with the band. So and of course there's Danny, Punky, and myself. So we've been together now for a while, and it's really musically we've become a lot tighter. So it's really a nice evolution. Who would have thought that a band that when we first put Angel together and we played for the first time, we immediately knew that there was something special going on there, and you don't feel that very often, if ever, and that was something special. And now to have a band that's come close to that again, all these years later, is pretty cool. Pretty cool.
It is good. It is really cool. And you guys have been together 7 years now, so that does eclipse the 5 or so years that you had when you were recording all the albums. Of course, that was a super important period. It gave you all that material. But now you've done 2 albums in 5 years, and the albums are excellent. That was the biggest surprise to me. Now, I personally, I love Risen. I think that is absolutely outstanding. And I have playlisted a lot of those songs right along with your other ones. And then Once Upon a Time, I think it's a solid album as well. So all in all, you guys have really done amazing things, continuing to propel that legacy forward, because it's the material's good. And I was going to mention, so we're talking about Kiss. I've always felt, I think about Kiss and Angel, and I think, if you put those 2 groups together and you were to form a super group between Angel and Kiss, definitely Frank would be the lead singer. He's a stronger singer than anyone in Kiss by a long shot, in my opinion. All due respect to Kiss, I mean, what they did was incredible, but I don't think it was just based on the lead vocals. But there's obviously Paul's a strong singer, and also I think Punky is an incredible guitar player, and I think he would be, if you put that super group together, you'd have to have Punky on the guitar. So I'm not sure how they would feel about it, but the two of you, for me, it's Punky and Frank. That's the core, of course, of Angel, and but it's great you've not only put a band together, but you've kept them together for 7 years, other than the bass player. So that's just a lot to be thankful for, and to be happy about. But how did you feel out on tour? Like, did you come back to you? The voice came back, and did you guys resonate with the crowd? And how is your crowd now? Is it a mix of young and old, or is it mostly guys like our age that were fans at that time that are coming out to see you, as I would kind of expect, maybe bringing some of their kids?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all of that. I mean, it's interesting that there are younger people out there as well as people our age, but it's also interesting that there's a mixture of those people, younger and older, that are fans of Angel, but have never seen Angel live as well. And this time around, they get to see them. You know, I mean,
right.
Because we were playing, you know, big places and you know, big auditoriums and stuff. And now some of them are able to come to these places that are close to where they live by and stuff, so they're able to see Angel for the first time. And the connection between the band and the audience is still the same. It's still a great. It's important to me to connect with the audience and to make sure that the audience is enjoying themselves as much as we enjoy playing for them, because that's the whole reason why you're out there. You're out there to have a good time with the people that came to see you, and you want them to experience that good time and that good feeling. That's why I always say when we're doing these shows, you know, forget about yesterday and tomorrow. You're here tonight to have a good time. You know, we always say every day, you never know about the future. You never know what lies ahead. So don't worry about that right now. You're here. Have a good time. Do what you feel like doing. Sing along, clap, do whatever makes you feel good. Do it.
Yeah, you guys wrote a song almost exactly about that. One of the songs on the new album, I think, was about that. But
yeah.
Speaking of young people, we have Selena here. Now, Selena's my girlfriend, and she listens to all this stuff. Anyways, and she's going to come on and tell you what her favorite song is. Now,
Okay.
Can you have any guess? She's listened to all your stuff, right?
Yes.
Not as much as I have, but she's listened to all of it. Any guess what it might be?
Is it a newer one or
it's one of the older songs.
Oh, the older songs? Let me see. Let me guess. I'm going to say it should be The Tower, but I'll say Feelings.
You nailed it. Go ahead, Selena. What's your favorite song?
Hi. My favorite song is Feeling.
So, you know, just for a moment, let's talk about that song. Just hang on you don't have to leave. Just hang on for a moment. So Feelings, to me, that was not a single, or it wasn't pushed, one or the other, right? Did you release it as a single? And then if not, why? And if they didn't push it, why not? Because that's also a song that I felt is a hit. You know, it's got hit written all over it.
Yeah, I think back at that time, you know, between the record company and probably part of the band as well, it wasn't a song that represented the band live as much. You know what I mean? As far as, we weren't thinking singles back then. We were thinking of what song represents the band. And, you know, of course, our choice was always The Tower. That, you know, it encompasses all the players in the band and the joint guitar synthesizer thing together and stuff. So, I mein, those are the kind of things that we were looking at back then. We weren't thinking about singles as far as or in the way we were when we got to White Hot and Single and Sinful. So it was a little bit different, you know. And oddly enough, on that first album, a lot of radio stations were playing Long Time, which and I think I said that before, which is a strange song for a radio station to be playing, because it's so progressive and it's so long that you would think. But radio stations were different back then.
They were.
You know,
they were playing that stuff.
It was a much different time.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, by the way, so I've got a few questions I've written down that, and I'm wondering. I've always loved your logo. I think it's extremely unique, but I've never read anywhere who came up with that. I'm sure it's out there somewhere, but in my research, I couldn't find who did the logo. Do you know?
The upside down one or the A?
The upside down one.
The upside down one was done by, I believe his name was Robert Petrick, and he came to us, I think it was on the, let's see, J.R. Smalling was with us. So, yeah, it had to be just before we were on tour, probably the second album, because we used it for the third album. So that was probably around 76. And JR was he came to there's so much cross references going on between Angel and Kiss. JR is the one that when you hear Kiss, he's the one that screams, the greatest rock and roll band or whatever that intro is for Kiss. That's JR.
Yeah,
and
you wanted the best, you got the best.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when he left Kiss, he came and started working with us. So he was working with us, and Peter Musso or Quinto, who did their sound, came to work with us as well. So there's a lot of cross references going on between the both bands and stuff. So so we know each other pretty well. So but anyway, JR came back, and he used to always come back after every show or before every show and let us know what we needed, and after the show ask us what went wrong. So this show, he came before we went on stage, and he said, this guy made a logo, and you guys have to see this logo before you go on. And we said, come on, JR, we've seen these kind of things. That's fine. We'll look at it after the show. He said, no, you got to see this. And we said, JR, and he turned it upside down as we were saying, come on. And everyone stopped and went, what? Do that again. And then he turned it back upside down again and went, what? Who did that?
It's an awesome logo. And since we're talking about, well, both your logos are incredible. It's all part of the show. It's part of what you guys do. And you've come up with something really interesting, of course. And speaking of people that worked with Angel and then Kiss as well. So I was wondering, how much support in the long run did you get, beginning, middle, end from Neil Bogart? Like, where do you feel his support was, and did it start to wane near the end at all?
No, Neil was always a huge supporter of the band. He really was. He wanted to sign the band from the beginning. We were going to go with Capitol right up until the very end. We, David Joseph, our manager, financed the album because he said, listen, I'm going to put money up here. You guys are going to go ahead and do the album. I'll get the producers because I know one way or another we're going to get a record deal. We had Arnold Ertegun, Nestle Ertegun from Atlantic. We had a lot of people. Rupert Perry. So many people come down and see the band, and we had good reactions from everybody. But everyone felt really comfortable with Neil. But Capitol was the one that gave us the best deal. So we went to Capitol, brought them the album, and John Carter, who was one of the guys who really wanted to sign the band, started to break down the album and tell us, well, you guys got to go back in and got to put more of this and less of that, and all of a sudden we were thinking, wait a second, we just worked hard on this album. This is what we want. So we came out of that meeting a little bit dejected, and David said to us, listen, don't be dejected. Let's go and talk to Neil one more time, because Neil really loves the band, and let's see if he can come anywhere close to matching what Capitol has offered us, and see how he feels about the record, because no one had heard the record yet. So we all felt that was a great idea, because we really had a great meeting with Neil before that. It's just that Casablanca at that time, Kiss hadn't broken. They were on their third album, the Dress to Kill album. And, Casablanca was, they were on the verge of trying to look for something new to help break the label, to get them over the hump. So we went, we went to Neil with the album, David put a meeting together. And Neil played the album for all of us, for the whole company while we were there. And after he had these huge studio monitors and stuff, he puts the album on. He had a great build up for us for everyone there in the company, and he played it, and no one spoke, no one did anything. Played it, the whole album. After it was over, he said to us, that is a great album. I need to have you guys on this label. And man, that's really what we wanted to hear. That's what we wanted to hear from Capitol. This is great. We're going to go forward with this. We love you guys. it was Neil that came up with it. And at that point, Neil came as close as he could to the Capitol deal, but we wanted to go with Neil. We were sold on Neil. And Neil was great to us from the beginning to right up until the end. But, you know, he had a lot of, there was a lot of power struggles going on. He had to deal with Donna Summer, and he had to deal with the guys in Kiss, and we were third on the totem pole.
Yeah, well,
wasn't Gene Simmons a champion of the band as well to push you to sign? I mean, I heard about that. Is that accurate? Because I know Gene takes credit for a lot of stuff, you know.
No, that's totally true. And I'll let Frank comment on that. Was something I wanted to ask you about too. But did his support, because he was the guy I think that hooked the whole thing up for you guys initially, if that story is accurate. And from what I heard, he went out and saw you guys, and then he came to Neil and he said, "You need to look at these guys. You need to sign them, but I never want them to open up for Kiss." Is that
right?
An accurate story?
That's pretty accurate. That's pretty accurate. Without getting into too many details, yes. When it was Gordon Fletcher who used to write for Rolling Stone and Circus Magazine. He did record reviews and he did different articles. He lived in D.C. and he used to come to see us all the time at Bogey's in the club where we first started. And he really loved the band, and and finally after a while coming to see us, we would sit and talk with him after the shows and stuff at Bogey's after we were done in the club. And finally he said, I'm going to start to bring some bands where I have to go and review at Largo, which was the big arena back then in DC. He said, I'm going to try and bring some of those bands down here to hear you guys. So we said, yeah, that would be a great idea. And the one band that he finally brought down was Kiss. So all those guys came down and heard us playing at Bogey's. And after the show, they stayed. They talked with us in the club. We went upstairs for a while. And Gene wanted us to sign with a coin. That was his first pitch. We had just signed with David Joseph. Otherwise, we probably would have signed with a coin at that point because, Gene's one of those guys when you can have a really good conversation with him, and he always gives you his ideas and stuff. So I mean, he was an influential guy. Especially back then, we were still trying to put our thing together and get our stuff together, and even though we had a lot of people down there, when you have your fellow musicians down there, it's a little bit different. So yeah, we said, unfortunately we had already signed with David Joseph. So that kind of ended. And then David Joseph brought us to Casablanca. And that's how that conversation went between Gene and Neil. So.
Did you ever, and the story I have is this never happened, but did you ever open for Kiss even one time?
No.
Never happened. And then
No.
Casablanca, from what I've heard also, they signed you to a 7-record deal. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there were deals that were like, it's like in sports. It's like, it's a deal that you have options at the end of each 2-album deal. There's options in there. So it's either you rework it if you need more money for that particular album, or if you want more tour money for this, so there's always options that they were always picked up and renewed. So yeah, it came to probably around 7. We were in the middle of our next studio album after the Sinful album, while the live album was being picked up and put out there. We were writing on that last tour for the next album, which we still have some of those songs somewhere. I don't know.
Wow. And I'm just wondering, do you have an album that you felt like just didn't quite meet the Angel standard? Were any of those 5 albums, and I have one that I feel this way about, but I'm just curious as to see if there was one album you could redo or maybe write a couple songs for, any of those. I mean, they're all great. I can listen.
Yeah. I don't really look back on any albums like that. I will say that the 5th album, the Sinful album, was a little bit disjointed because at first Neil said, well, what if we do a half live and half studio, which is kind of like a strange idea, but we always were willing to work with whatever ideas Neil had. So it was a little bit disjointed. It was half of it, I think, was done at the record plant. Someone was done at Davlin. We had Lee DiCarlo, who had done the White Hot album, did some of the stuff on the Sinful, and then we had Ed Thacker do some of the. So it was a little bit disjointed, but I don't look back on any album as like, oh, I'd love to go back and redo this. I mean, when it comes out, it's done, and it's time to move on to the next project. So.
Yeah, that's a good attitude to have, and that was the album I was talking about. And it's of course you had a really big song on that album. The Winter Song was on that, isn't it? Or am I thinking? No, that's not the one. But yeah, that album I thought was not quite up to the other ones, but still a strong album. But then the next one comes. You go to Risen, and I'm still amazed about that, about how you guys. Were those songs a long time in the making? Like how long, and did you and Punky collaborate together writing those, or did you write separately and then put it together? Like, how did that work out for Risen?
Some of the stuff that was done was we did, of course we weren't able to do it like we did back in the day where Punky, Greg, and myself would stay after rehearsal and just kind of work on some riffs and stuff and some ideas that we had. We would work up stuff during rehearsal, and then the three of us would stay a little bit later after the rest of the guys left, and kind of work them out for the next day of rehearsal. But this time around, it was everyone doing stuff at home, and then between the three of us, between Punky, Danny, and myself, working on things at home, and then, sending stuff to each other back and forth. And then finally the three of us coming together and putting the final touches on stuff, like whether it be, arrangements or, changing lyrics, fixing lyrics, or adding a bridge or some stuff like that. The three of us finally came together and did it that way. So. Yeah, it's a little bit different, but it's the way I find that most people work these days, and everyone has a little studio at home, and it's much easier and more cost effective to send your ideas or whatever, how much you have done on a song, and send it to someone and say, this is what I have, and then you can do it. Whether it's Zoom or anything else, you can work it out that way as well.
Yeah, it's a different time period. Like, look at us now. I'm in Brazil. Robert's in Calabasas. You're in where are you now, Frank?
I'm back in New Jersey right now.
You're in New Jersey, so yeah, that's the new world.
I
noticed there's no lyrics up for the song "The Torch." Great song, "The Torch," right?
Yeah.
And so what are you guys talking about in "The Torch"? I couldn't figure it out. Do you want to tell me what that one's about a little bit?
Yeah, the Torch we threw around some different ideas, but it basically was kind of a love song with where someone's it's two people trying, kind of like the McCoys and the Hatfields and the McCoys, where someone's trying to break that relationship up. Everyone outside is trying to break the relationship up and trying to keep moving forward with however you can, and and supporting each other even though everyone else is trying to tear them apart. So yeah, just a basic idea that we kind of worked on and just kind of stuck with that idea.
Okay, and then you guys re-recorded The Tower.
Yes.
And so that was astounding to me. And the reason it's astounding is that I typically hate re-recordings. Now, that's a big thing being done in the record industry these days to try to get more juice, more profit out of the song. And I guess I assume that that's why you guys set out to do it. The amazing thing is that is one of the rare re-recordings that it is as strong and in parts are even stronger than the original, if you can believe that. That's to my ears, that you guys did a hell of a job re-recording The Tower. And I think that bodes well for the fact that your two new albums are so good. Now, when was that re-recorded? Tell me the story on that, because you would never expect that. I was like, why the hell is this being re-recorded? Because that's as close to perfection as you can get in the first place, right? At least to me.
Well, that was our argument as well. I mean, you never can recapture what you did earlier, but it was something that Cleopatra wanted us to do. Cleopatra has been they've been great to us. They've been a great partner for us. They've supported us very well, and we have no reason to doubt it. Look, they're the record company, we're the artists. If they ask us and say this is going to help, well, that's their part that they know better than we do, And I know a lot of guys these days think they know it all, but look, we've come pretty close to knowing as much as we can, because between Punky and I, we've been in the business for so long. Both of us started when we were teenagers. So, but you have a record company that says, I think it'll help if you guys redo it. And I think because we have the confidence in the band, and we have the confidence in being able to do it just as well because of what we didn't have back in '75. We, equipment wise and everything that you have to work with. Maybe we could find something that works well for us. So we said, okay, we'll attempt it. If we feel good about it, then it's yours to put on the record. Meanwhile, we keep writing what we're doing for the record, doing what we're doing. That was the last part. That was the last thing that we recorded because we were, the other stuff was important to us. Not that this wasn't, because, like I said, we wanted to live up to the standard of the first one, which you never can quite capture, but I think we came pretty close to it with that version of it. So
it could have been. I mean, if I would have been in your position, I would have been totally against it. If I was a musician and we had a great song and turn around, somebody wants us to re-record it, I'd be like, no. And the chances for that thing to be full on cheese factor was big. It could have been just full cheese. And it wasn't, So, and, they pick up a little extra coin. They wanted a piece. I'm sure that Cleopatra wanted a piece of that song because it's got such notoriety. And you guys, then you did a good job. So my hat's off to you. You could have just said, we don't want to do this. Let's just blow it. Let's just get it done fast or whatever. Or you could have gone in and pretended it was live, put some crowd noise on it and did like a Kiss Live type thing. But what you did was good,
Yeah. Also a lot of bands like Twisted Sister and stuff, and some other bands have re-recorded this stuff so that they can have the newest stuff that you re-record now. You're not locked into. You lose some of those rights.
Right, you own it.
Yeah, you
own it. Yeah.
Yes. Now we own that, and we push to use that version of it. We own that now, so that was a factor as well.
Yeah, but some artists are ruining their catalogs, as far as I'm concerned. Now, like Taylor Swift has obviously done this, and she's done a phenomenal job re-recording her stuff, in my opinion, like unbelievable. But a lot of artists are ruining their catalogs. You're not doing that. I'm not trying to insinuate that. I'm just saying that they'll go back and re-record a whole bunch of stuff and try to put it out there, kind of hide their other stuff. If you're looking on streaming platforms, you have to search for the original that you love and cherish, and you have this BS stuff that comes along. But anyways, I just thought
but it all goes back to ownership. It's all about ownership.
That's what it's about. You're exactly right. Yeah, that's why they do it, because you now you have full ownership and have more control over it. So that's why. That's really why it's done.
But in the big picture, I feel it's so much about legacy for a band like you or any of these bands that have made it far enough where your music is out there, and now that you're out there on streaming, your music is forever. Right. And so how people manage their legacy is so important. 20 years from now, probably 2 of the 3 of us won't even be here. We won't be able to have, time goes by so fast. Right. But your music you're in a genre, you're in a type of business where that lives on forever. And I think these artists are doing themselves a disservice when they do too much of that stuff, because you don't want to hide the jewels that you create when you're in your prime, in your 20s, writing this stuff from the soul and from the heart and from your emotions and your hormones and all that all that's happening at the same time. But hell, you did a great job. Now, I had a couple of questions for Punky. And maybe I could just run these by you because I don't think we're going to get Punky. And please say hello to him. And we understand.
Absolutely.
We understand. We're big fans of Punky, both of you. And but do you know the story of the opportunities that he had to join Aerosmith, Kiss, and the New York Dolls? Now, these are all things I've read. So it's just hearsay from that. So I wanted to get it from not quite the horse's mouth, but you've worked with him for so long that maybe you would have some insight as to how those things came about. And I actually could see him playing in any of those bands. Obviously, it's hard to think of Joe Perry not being in Aerosmith, or if they were going to, or maybe Punky was going to be in another spot there. But what do you know about that?
Yeah, I don't know much about the Aerosmith one, but the Kiss one was that was Barry Levine, who's a close friend of all of ours. He's a photographer. He's done everyone. He's done Cher, Sean Cassidy. He's done all the Kiss stuff, Queen, and he did all of our stuff, a lot of our stuff. He did the second album cover for us. He did lots of photos and Barry and I are still real close, and Barry's brother was my roommate for a while. Barry Levine lived with Barry Brand for a while, so we're all very close. And when Kiss were looking for a guitar player, I don't know if Barry got in touch with them or they got in touch with Barry about Punky, and so Barry, however that happened, I'm not quite sure, but Barry called Punky about it. This was kind of, we were already splintered by then. I think it was somewhere in the 80s. And I think Punky was still working with Greg at the time. But Barry called Punky and told him that Kiss wanted him to come down and audition for the band. So Punky said, yeah, sure, of course I will. So they gave him all these songs to learn. And Punky went down there. They were in SIR for the auditioning. When he walked in and they were doing communication breakdown. So Punky picked up a guitar and he started playing with them. So after the song, I believe they sat down and started talking. And Gene said, okay, let's talk about you joining Kiss. And Punky said, well, I just want to let you know that I'm still working with Greg. And Gene took that as him saying no, which Punky to this day said, no, I never said no, that I didn't want to join the band. I just wanted him to understand that I'm not going to just leave Greg hanging. I got to let him know what's going on and all that stuff. So, so Gene took that as a no, and he said, let's go. No one says no to Kiss, and they walked out. So that's why that never happened. I guess if he didn't start the conversation off with "I'm still playing with Greg," he might have been in Kiss by now.
Oh, that's a great story. I had no idea about that. Yeah. And I can imagine.
And the New York Dolls thing, that was when Punky and Mickey were in Bucks. I think that whole thing came up. That they were looking for other people to put in the band, and David Krebs, who wanted to manage the band, he wanted to manage Angel and stuff. This was before Angel, but it was when they were in Bucks. Asked both Mickey and Punky if they were interested in any way to join the New York Dolls situation.
Well, he could have been a great addition. He would have been a great addition to that group. But I can't see him being in Kiss, because why would you cover up the beautiful face with all that makeup And but New York Dolls, he was the glam god.
Dolls makes perfect sense.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Listen, when you're making the amount of money the Kiss will make, anyone will cover up their face with white makeup.
Exactly. Including Kiss.
Exactly.
Oh God. And there's one more little thing about Punky is so I find it interesting. So the missing years, right? The missing years when Punky left the business. He opened a tanning salon in a upscale town on the East Coast, where people can afford to go get a tan and so forth. And he was gone for a while. And then so how often were you in contact with him? And do you feel that period sort of reignited his passion? Because maybe sometimes we just need a rest from whatever we're doing. And he got away from it for like a decade or something, I think. And then I was just so surprised when he's making a comeback.
There was an album in between there called In the Beginning, and that was something that Barry and I were trying to get the guys to go back out and Greg didn't want to. Of course, he was in the middle of doing his patents for all the stuff in Vegas, whatever he was doing, and Punky had enough of being out there and trying to deal with all the politics of the music industry. So we did, Barry and I did manage to have Punky play 2 or 3 tracks in the beginning, and we had Felix played on a couple of the tracks. And when we went down to DC to record Punky stuff, the 4 of us played together. We went into a rehearsal hall and just jammed out for a while, and we had a lot of fun. We recorded it, but we didn't. It was a rehearsal, so it wasn't recorded to put on an album. But it was just us doing some of the old stuff like Can You Feel It and some of the old Angel stuff. But yeah, they played on that album. So the 4 of us are on that In the Beginning album.
And that's the album that's missing. That's the album that is not on Spotify.
Right.
And I think I asked you about that the last time around, but maybe it'll get released at some point for streaming, maybe not, right? Do you know?
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't have any control over that stuff.
Yeah, so for sure. Yeah. Robert, did you have anything you wanted to ask for Frank?
So I noticed that one of the shows you guys got coming up, you've got Stars playing with you.
Oh yeah, that's the Stars, the Zebra Angel Stars show.
Yeah. That's a throwback from back in the day for sure. Another band with a cool logo.
Yeah, back in the day, we were heavy rivals with each other.
No, I know. That's why I bring it up. Totally.
Time has softened that up. Richie and I are really good friends. We talk to each other all the time. I was just talking to him recently, a month or 2 ago. So yeah, we really enjoyed playing with those guys. We've done a few shows. A year or 2 ago, we did some shows together and stuff. So yeah, all that stuff. And Doobie, I ran into Doobie at one of the conventions a couple of years ago. So yeah, we're I love playing with those guys. So it's always a fun thing. Like I said, now back then a lot of the bands are rivals. Nowadays, both of us, when we run into each other, any bands that would have played with each other, now you can reminisce about those times instead of being a rival.
Yeah. 100%, and then complain about what the state of the music business is.
Exactly.
Right. Everybody has the same. Can you fucking believe?
Exactly.
Right.
Can you believe where we are now?
Exactly. It makes
sense.
So
those will be fun shows. It's always great to play with bands that you played with back in the day, and I know we're doing a few more shows with Ace again. So I know all those guys. All of us know all the guys in the band, and of course we know Ace for a long time. And Scotty Coogan, played. He did some of my solo stuff with me live. So and he's also in the he's also in the video for the solo album, my solo album. So yeah.
Okay.
Very cool. Well, you know, we've been on almost an hour now. I think that's a good time to probably call it a day, because you get anything longer than that, people get worried about spending too much time. But I just wanted to thank you, Frank. You're a really great guy to talk to. Super interesting stories. It's a lot of fun. I'm sure Robert feels the same way. Just
it's great. I mean, because look, the last time we spoke to you, prior to Scott speaking to you last week, was 50 years ago. So
right. Very cool.
We were little kids, man. We were 16, 17 years old, and we're like, holy shit, you know, we're interviewing this band Angel that I just, like I said, I just saw at the forums. Like, how does that shit happen?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's great. It was great to meet you guys again, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
So I'll send you a link or whatever once we put it up. I'll send you an
email. That would be great
once we get it up. The YouTube channel is Raw Power Mag, and we're just working on like some little. We want to get a nice cover on there. We'll put your album cover on it and so forth. But
very cool.
Yeah, best of luck on the rest of the tour. And
thank you so much.
Hello to Punky, and say hello to Danny, because he helped arrange this for me and get the word to you, I think.
Absolutely.
And wish you guys the best. Have a killer tour, and you know, maybe we'll talk again sometime.
Maybe at some point we can run into each other as well.
I'll see you at the whiskey. Or I'm in Calabasas. I'm in Calabasas.
And make sure you let whoever knows and come back and say hi upstairs. Come upstairs and say hi.
Yeah, right? We'll do. Cool.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Frank.
Bye. Bye.